Good evening. She spent much of the past year bedridden and now can only walk with a stick. But Angie Crane from East Yorkshire says the NHS won't recognise that she has Lyme disease. The rare tick-borne infection is difficult to detect, but Angie is warning that with cases on the rise, more people need to know about the disease. In 2003, there were just under 300 infections. By 2008, the most recent figure available, that had risen to over 800. This increase is due in part to more people taking activity holidays. With more, here's our correspondent, Vicky Johnson.
Angie Crane once loved nothing more than pulling on her hiking boots and exploring our countryside. She didn't realise that lurking in the undergrowth was a menace that was to destroy her life.
I was virtually bedridden. I couldn't even sit up. I could have no daylight in the room. The pains that were running through my body was worse than I could ever bear.
Angie is convinced she has Lyme disease and blames a tick bite almost 20 years ago. Ticks attach themselves to passing mammals. Their saliva anaesthetises our skin, giving them time to infect us. Former zookeeper Wendy Fox has been left paralysed by Lyme disease. She now runs a support group to spread information and advice.
It can be very problematic to doctors, and symptoms are very non-specific. They're flu-like, they're aches and pains, they could be attributed to any number of other conditions. They really need to look at all the factors, whether the patient is likely to have been exposed, and particularly if they've experienced a rash in the past, but they haven't got it now to show the doctor.
This is the problem Angie's faced, and while she's paid to have private tests, the NHS won't accept the diagnosis. Even though she's ill enough to need a carer, it's refusing to fund treatment. Angie is now paying hundreds of pounds to have antibiotics sent to her home in Hessel.
She's been so ill, virtually on death's door at some times, looking at her. And to feel the rebuff, you know, the rejection has been really, really demeaning for her, and psychologically bringing her down even lower. We need to just do a lot more research and look really into, deeply into it, because it's happening to healthy people.
Angie is now calling for improved testing and a better understanding of the condition to ensure others aren't left suffering like her. Vicky Johnson, BBC Look North, Hessel.
So what should we do to protect ourselves? Well, Richard Harrison is from Tick Alert. He's joining me now from our studio in Leeds. Richard, good evening to you.
Good evening.
How worried should we be about Lyme disease?
I don't think people should be worried about being in the countryside. Our message is very much about taking preventative action. If you're out in woodland, forests, out on the hillsides, is cover up arms and legs, try to avoid having exposed skin. Obviously in the summertime that might not be that easy, wearing shorts and t-shirts, and in which case look to use an insect repellent that's effective against ticks. They're generally available from most supermarkets and your local chemist.
And are we talking about everywhere if we go out to the wolds or the dales or whatever, or are there areas which are specifically at risk?
Well, certainly here in Yorkshire, the Yorkshire Moors is a known area for a hotspot for tick disease, as is Cumbria up in Scotland and down to the south coast as well. But our message is also that people should be aware of the potential risk from tick disease in Europe too. It's not only here in the UK, there's also tick-borne encephalitis in 27 countries across Europe, and most of those being very popular destinations for outdoor holidays, as you mentioned before.
And what should someone do if they are bitten by a tick?
Well, certainly if you realise that you have been bitten by the tick and the tick is still attached, then certainly what you should do is, if you have some fine tip tweezers with you, is pull them out, get them as close to the tick as possible and pull it straight out without jerking or twisting the tick. And if you can, possibly keep it with you. And if you do, when you return from being out in the countryside or on holiday, if you do sort of feel a bit unwell and you feel you should go and see your GP, and take the tick with you, and at least then you've got the evidence to prove that you were bitten by a tick. And
the treatment is for Lyme disease what?
Well, I think as that piece mentioned, Lyme disease is a bacterial infection, so it's treatable with antibiotics.
Very good to talk to you tonight, Richard. Thank you very much indeed. Useful advice for those who are going out into the open air, the wolds and the dales through the summer.